Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
This is Simply Nourish, empowering women through menopause and beyond. I am your host, Brenda Bickerstaff. Join me and my guests for an inspiring conversation about how they survived and thrived during this important new chapter of life. Today's conversation is a real special one, and one I can personally relate to, because we're talking about something that so many women experience, but not many talk about openly. What happens when life changes? When the kids leave home, when careers shift, when things feel a little uncertain, or even when you find yourself asking, what's next for me? Because this stage of life isn't about going backwards, it's about building something strong, independent, and meaningful moving forward. Today, I'm joined by someone who is incredibly passionate about helping women to do exactly that. Christine Korako is the co-founder of Inspire Me Woman, a community that supports women to reconnect with themselves, rediscover their purpose, and step into new chapters with confidence. Christine, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, kia ora, Brenda. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting me to come along and talk about women things.
I think it's going to be magical. But before we get into it, I have a few little quick fire questions just to relax you and get into the mood of it all. So no overthinking, just first thing that comes to mind. All right, morning or night owl?
I'm actually both. I love getting up early and I love staying up late, so I've got to say both.
I don't know how you do that.
I probably don't have 8 hours sleep. I generally have about 6, so
okay,
yeah.
Nice. Beach walk or bush walk?
Beach walk. Love the bush, but beach walk.
Book or podcast?
Oh, can I say both?
No.
Okay, I'll say podcast because I'm here. Do you like that?
Yeah, cool.
I love a good book because my imagination can work overtime, but a podcast does that as well.
Comfort zone or take a leap?
Take a leap. Follow my instinct. Take a leap. Mm-hmm.
One word your friends would use to describe you?
Kind and calm. That's 2 words.
But we've joined them together.
Together as kind.
It's like a
and calm.
hashtag.
It is. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is.
Something you wish you'd worried less about in your 40s?
Wow, in my 40s that I... probably my direction at that time of career, balancing life with family, etc. Yeah.
One thing you do just for you?
One thing I do just for me is always have, during a day, I have some time out for myself. And that is, if I'm at home in the home office, I'll go into my colourful couch by the window where it's sunny and have a cup of tea. If it's out somewhere else, I might, depending on the time of day, just sit there and have a nice glass of Chardonnay.
Perfect. Wonderful. And heels or sneakers these days?
I used to be all heels. Sneakers are pretty comfy and good these days.
Yeah, we get there, eh? It's like,
we do.
No. They get smaller and smaller and
They
smaller.
do. That's so true.
So let's delve a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about you first, sort of build the background. So your family, your background, what would you like to share with us?
Probably because you may pick it up in my accent that I'm from Australia. So I'm a Melbourne girl originally. I am a New Zealand citizen. I married an amazing Kiwi man, Nook, my husband. We've been married 35 years and we have 4 sons. So I had 4 sons under 5 years old. So life was incredibly busy, as you can imagine. And, you know, I come from a background of 5 children in our family, brought up with very strong values, morals. We couldn't even say bum when we grew up, but great independence. So a good life. And I think the last thing is that I've always been a career woman, spent time, though, raising the children. So I've gone through different times and chapters in my life, that's for sure. And now I'm concentrating more on things that I can do to support others.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned, obviously, an Australian. How long have you been in Canterbury, Christchurch for?
Sure. So we've been married 35 years. The first 6 years we spent in London and then came back permanently. So 29 years.
And the transition from living in Melbourne to coming to Christchurch?
I know. I sort of came from, quite a big city, and, I loved it because in lots of ways, Christchurch is very similar to Melbourne, the beautiful open spaces, and I think the people as well. Christchurch, Canterbury has a great depth of warmth and inclusiveness here, and I loved that. And Melbourne was much the same for me. So the transition was probably more for me marrying somebody who was Ngaitahu, to go into a more cultural realm, if you like, of my life, and not knowing anybody who was Māori beforehand. And so that's really enriched my life in so many ways as well. But love Christchurch.
Yeah, it is a wonderful place to be.
It really is. Yeah.
So you talk about, and I've seen you write it as well, but you talk about the word chapters, chapters in life.
Yeah.
So do you define your life in chapters?
I do. I always have, actually. And because I think life itself is made up of all these experiences, and we go through, I think there are definite chapters in our lives. And it breaks it down that for me, to looking ahead in my life and thinking there's one big life ahead of me can be a little bit daunting, and where I'm going, what I'm doing. There's different stages of our life. And those different stages are what create the chapters for me, and I think for many other people as well.
When you reflect on your own life, what would you call your major chapters so far?
Sure. I think for those, there's the major one has to come down to the early growth of childhood. And I say that because through that period of time is where my values, my confidence, my independence, but particularly my values were created. So that's an important chapter of my life to begin with. The first one, then it comes down to the education and learning and getting into the workforce. Part of that is through the teenage years. So we're navigating heartbreak quite often.
All the time. Every song.
Exactly. It's like, So I think that's an important part of that. We're forming stronger friendships, long-lasting friendships from that, but we're also growing our skill base with that, which is really important. So that's an important chapter for me because it set me up pretty much for my career through that time as well, through education, all the skill set that and the learnings that I was taking on through that time. But I think also it was the identity I was creating for myself as a person. And that was an important chapter.
And I really want to touch on identity later, because I think that is something that we sometimes can work for us or work against us when we maybe want to change as we age, get older.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I look forward to that, having a bit more of a tease out on that one.
Were there any chapters you didn't feel prepared for, or are you?
Yeah, sure. I think the greatest one that I wasn't prepared for, in some ways I was, in some ways I wasn't, but my mother passed away when I was in my 30s. Now, that's a chapter in my life where I'm married, I have 4 very young children. And my mother's, was going through breast cancer. Now, she survived breast cancer for 10 years, but when she passed, I still wasn't ready for that. So I wasn't prepared for that, for the grief and the overwhelming grief of that. So on the surface, I think as women do very well, we tend to glide through it externally and everything's okay. Internally, I think we're in a lot of turmoil and a lot of grief through that time. So that's a difficult one.
Because it just sort of wells up and just comes randomly, eh?
It really does, and it takes you very much unaware at times, at any place where you are. So, but it does create resilience and all of those things that go with it, I guess, on the other side of it.
And have there been any setbacks in your chapters? And how have they played out?
Yeah. Setbacks in my chapters. I think we all go through a number of setbacks in our chapters of life. To be fair, I'm the sort of person who will take on any challenge as long as my instinct is right for it. So I've done so much in my life because if there's an opportunity, I'll say, I can do that. And even if I don't quite know how to do it, I'll still take it on and do it. So that can create risk for myself because if it doesn't work out, or it can create a real positive flow because it's successful and it's going forward. I think the chapter in my life, a couple of those through experience, I know that you have a great expertise and knowledge and everything when it comes to menopause. But to be fair, I would put that as a chapter in my life I was unprepared for. And it was a chapter in my life that was a difficult one that I had to work through because I didn't really have any knowledge of that. It wasn't something that was spoken about, or my mother had passed when I was quite young. So that I had to really work through that and seek some as much vital, valuable information, authentic information, because there's a lot of information out there.
And I think also I think nowadays there is so much more information available. Yeah. Some of it's way off kilter.
Yeah.
And because we have such a society where there's stuff coming at us all the time and everyone is an expert.
Yeah.
It's really hard to actually sometimes sift through everything. So nowadays, we're inundated with it, but when we were going through it or still going through it or where we're at, no one spoke about it either.
They didn't.
So it was hard to know, am I normal? Is this what's happening?
Exactly. And I know that everybody else's experience is different as well. So what I may be going through, and I'm talking with my girlfriends or my sister about it, their experience might be quite different to my experience. But yes, I think we're so unprepared for that in so many ways. Yet it's such, everybody goes through it,
If we're lucky enough
to live to that age. Yes. And if you're unprepared for it, it can hit you like the bus coming down the street, to be fair.
One minute you feel completely in control, and the next it's, like you say, the bus. You're boom.
That's it, you're just spiralling.
You mentioned the word opportunity. Now, maybe do you make an opportunity, or does an opportunity find you? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a really interesting one with opportunity. The way that I look at opportunity is that if you're open to the world, so that, I'm a very open person, actually, and I'm always looking at my surrounding, what's going on. I'm not a closed person, and I'm a very social person. I love to be around people because I get a lot of energy from people. So what happens because of that is that I'm open to seeing opportunity. If I was more of a closed person, I may not see that opportunity because I'm not open to things coming my way or what's out there. There are, though, times when you have to create your opportunity. And that happened when I got to the stage that the boys had all left home. And because I was so close in age, it happened very fast. And so I actually had to then create an opportunity for myself. And then other opportunities came to me from that. So sometimes we do have to create our own opportunities, and there's a bit of exploration, to find what that opportunity might be. What does it look like?
So the opportunity for Inspire Me Woman, how did it come about?
I love this story.
Okay, let's get into it.
And I love it because I was at that time of my life that we tend to get to, the children have left home, as I was just saying. And I'm thinking, you know what, my husband and I had always owned businesses together. And when I was young, I used to be very much a front person, meaning that, I was sort of a bit of a leader at that time, if you like, and I was always at the front. And over time, through raising a family and also in business, my husband's very much a front person, I actually started to reverse back to being a back person. So not visually out the front as much. I was a bit more quieter, and that's not a bad thing.
I'm just like quieter.
I know. And it's actually not a bad thing because that was a chapter of my life, is how I look at it, and that's great. So once the boys left, I decided it was time for myself to, and my husband said the same, look, you've been working so hard, and we decided that I would go out and explore something just for me on what I wanted to do, what I was passionate about. So I had to then really look at myself again and think, I had to look back at what are those qualities that I had that perhaps I'd like to bring back to the forefront again. And that one of those was being perhaps a natural front person again. And I knew that I wanted to be working with people because, they give me energy. I just love being around people. I knew that one of the things, because I wrote these down, because it's very hard to define what your future is going to be at times.
Yeah.
And to work out the opportunity. So I just really decided then I love creating outcomes for people. I love empowering people. I like creating solutions. I'm creative also, so I love organising things. So when I wrote them all down, and I got to a point I thought, good, these are all the things that I want to incorporate into the next opportunity. And one thing I love doing is working with women and bringing women together. I'm a natural connector, always connecting people with people for whatever purpose. So I had this thought. I had been to lots of networking meetings and events, which served a great purpose, and I got a lot of information. The one thing that I felt I would like to do is create a more holistic approach to that, so that when women do come, they're greeted at the door, that nobody's left standing, just feeling uncomfortable, that it's a really inclusive group, that we're empowering each other and all of those things. Margie Foster comes onto the scene. So Margie and I knew each other. And for those who know Margie is magnificent. She's such a great woman. She has great energy and vitality, and she is so true. What you see is what you get with Margie, and I love that about her as well. But we weren't besties. Anyway, we were...
How did you guys connect?
Originally, because we'd known each other for years, but not as good friends, but just kept connecting. And I think the universe was always bringing us together. Yeah. Probably when I think back, it was through... She was doing some motivational things for teenagers through her business motivations.
Yes.
And one of my sons actually was part of that. And I knew Margie through those years. So we happened to bump into each other. And we both kind of said to each other, we've got this idea. We both, funnily enough, had the same idea. So, of course, being Margie and I were chatting, we said, right, we need to catch up for a wine, which turned into 2 or 3. And we sat there and we worked out the framework for this inclusive group that we would create. And, and that's how we launched it. So that was 8 years ago. And we decided we do everything ourselves. I mean, social media, website, or the back end of the website. We have a company that does a website. But we do it all ourselves. So it's been true organic growth. And that's how we wanted it to be.
So what did it look like 8 years ago?
8 years ago, not dissimilar to what we do now. We've kept exactly the same format as what we do. I think the difference is it's become far more professional over time, but not losing the ethos of what it was set up to be. And we have just grown it since the very first beginnings. So, and we still have the same enjoyment every time with what we do.
And what are the things you do?
So a number of things is that, we connect women into, it's a really trusted space that women come to connect, so grow their networks, etc. But importantly is that they can feel they can be absolutely authentic when they come. There's no expectation, because a lot of business women particularly say that they feel there's an expectation of them to behave in a certain way, to, come across in a certain way.
So let me get this right. You and Margie, couple of wines, no expectations.
Yes.
Great
like
stuff.
That? I know, totally. It's all good. It's all good. You can see where we're going.
And women can be themselves.
They can be themselves. And so the format is we have our breakfasts, we have our after fives, we have a large event at Addington. But apart from that, apart from connecting women who we can see some great outcomes with that, we have guest speakers, of course, as well, which is really important. But we have a real charitable sense of what we do as well. So over the years, most of the money we made, to be fair, we gave to charity.
Nice.
And in the last couple of years or 2 years, we've decided we do need to keep revenue, to some revenue, because it will give us the opportunity in the future to enable women to come who perhaps may not be able to afford to come. A lot of people putting money into all sorts of things just to get by these days. Yeah. Business, into their own business, if they're start-up business. So that's what we do.
And you saw this gap in the women's market. And often, because I did write down here, you said the word, you'd like to raise women up and be that connector.
Yes.
And often women are very good at pushing other women down.
Yes.
So how you saw a gap that obviously needed to bring these women together to support them. And from, I would imagine, quite a diverse range of business backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Experience.
Yeah, they are there. We have women who own global businesses, to women who are starting in business, to women who are just themselves in business. So, and different ages, which is really important, because diversity is great, because it's that collective thinking. With diversity, there's such a combination of thoughts and ideas and challenges and experience. So that's really an important part of what we do.
And do you see any of the younger, and I use the word younger, women in business, and they can be 50 or they can be 30, change just through the connections they make?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I love that you say younger. Younger can be, you're right, at any age. I mean, I'm early 60s, yet I feel like 45, 50, honestly.
You look great.
Oh, that's so
Not
nice.
that we judge people on how they look.
But that's very,
you look fabulous.
Oh, that's so kind of you. But the reason I feel so good is I'm on the other side of menopause.
Oh, hush you, hush.
I know. So that's why I feel like a 50-year-old, 45, 50-year-old. But I do see the difference. When I have, and it's a theory originally, but I see it happening in front of me all the time, is that when women connect and come together in a positive group, it's the friendships that they make, but also it's the networking business connections that they make. And I have seen some of the women who have aligned themselves for further opportunities in business together, which is fantastic. I have seen women in the group who have had great investment advice from some of the women in the group and now investing, in a meaningful way. I have seen just on so many levels differences in women, but I think the greatest is that trusted connection leads to opportunity or leads to really strong friendships.
When you were saying that, I was just thinking of the word trust.
Yes.
Because in a business world, often trust is quite hard to come by.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're in a group like Inspire Me Women, you know the women in there are there for the same purpose.
Absolutely. And trust is, and probably to give you an idea of the trust that goes on with a group such as this. And I think when women find the right group for themselves, because there's different groups which would be meaningful for different women. But we have guest speakers, as you know, that come in. But we also use our own women. We invite them, would you like to be the speaker at a certain event? And it means that it gives them the forum to actually grow confidence, etc. But some of them, I always say to them, can you share your personal story as well as your experiences or expertise? Because a personal story, there's so much that comes out of that. But some of our women, because we go into Chatham House rules, so, what goes on inside on board stays on board, and nobody shares unless they want them to, anything outside of the room. Some of them have actually discussed some things that have happened in their life that they actually haven't discussed with other people. And to me, I think, yes, that is everything that I've tried and Margie has tried to accomplish here with the trust within the room with these wonderful women. So that's very gratifying and fulfilling.
Midlife isn't about slowing down. It's about your comeback. At Simply Nourish, we fuel your energy, build your strength, and help you thrive through the menopause transition. Forget quick fixes. This is about real change, backed by science and led with heart. Join a community of vibrant women rewriting what's possible. Simply Nourish, stronger, wiser, and just getting started. So that's really lovely, and I just love what Inspire Me Woman stands for. And I just think it's phenomenal what you and Margie have set up, and it's just heartwarming.
Oh, thank you.
Just to have that connection. Really, really important. Now, we've talked about the importance of connection,
Mm-hmm.
and we've talked about chapters.
Yeah.
So how does it help women to navigate change? What I mean there is that whole idea of you've connected with somebody, and we can connect in a business sense, but within our own personal chapters.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does for that. Because I think there are, certainly in our chapters through life, there's, depending what chapter we're actually in, but I think it creates more awareness, of life and what we're doing at that any given time as a chapter in our life. And from that, it means that we can reflect on, because not every chapter is a successful chapter, let's face it.
But aren't some of those chapters some of your best chapters potentially?
Correct, because from that is when we take a lot of learnings. I always reflect back and think, okay, so that hasn't gone so well, or it hasn't gone in the direction I would have liked it to. But there's always the upside of I've got so many more learnings from that. And from that, I have the ability to make change for the next chapter, which is important. So I think just looking forward, I think the exploration, just explore what is possible in the next chapter of lives, but take with you the learnings from the past chapters.
Are there any common patterns you see in women, and the women you've met over your many chapters? Are there, and this is I'm going to probably swing it into that whole concept of identity.
Yeah.
That when women often, and this is probably the essence here, is that women reach a certain age.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, the kids have all left home.
Yeah.
We're suddenly feeling, who am I?
Yeah.
What is my identity now? Because before I was identified as the mother.
Correct.
As the, looking after the kids, the husband, doing everything. And it could be the kids have gone. It could be that there's been a separation.
Yeah.
There's lots of these sort of happens around the 50s.
Yes. Yeah.
How do women navigate that chapter and identity?
Yeah. It's a really, really good question. And I've been through that myself, and speaking to other women, how they've navigated through that. Because, as you say, when there's a change in your life that has been, particularly if something's been meaningful in your life, and that is no longer, it's still there, but it's changed. Say the kids have moved on, or you've changed career, or something's happened, something's changed in your life. Then for that, I think that a new chapter gives us permission to start again, which is really important. But how do we define that, what that start is really hard. And it does a lot of soul searching and going through the motion of thinking, okay, who am I, what am I, where am I at this given point of time? And who do I want to be? Still myself, of course, but are there changes I want to make that will influence the impact I'm having in the next chapter of my life? And if that's the case, what changes do I need to make? And I go back to that one that when I said I used to be more of a front person, gradually became more the back person, not the one, sort of out there doing it all. I had to make some changes, and with that takes confidence. And I think part of that, probably a scenario that I use a lot is I wrap myself around a really close group of friends where we can sit down and just talk things through. And they'll say, but Chris, these are the things that you've been striving for. And they're kind of very honest with you as well with their opinion. And then I work through, where do I want to be? How do I want to be doing it? And then I work out a plan to get there.
How do you deal, or how do women deal with it who may not have the same confidence as you, or life experiences? Maybe they feel completely overwhelmed with who they are currently and want to be something different.
Yeah.
How do they step out of that?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. And look, I think all of us go through a lack of confidence stage in our life. Some people don't, and lucky them, but most of us do. For me, it was really taking the time I actually wrote down all the things that I thought I was good at and all the things I thought I was rubbish at, right? And I did a bit of a self-assessment. And I thought, okay,
They can be brutal.
They can be brutal. And I had to be really honest with myself as well. And then from that, I determined, okay, I've got a lack of confidence here. One of my lack of confidences was as I was transitioning into another chapter, I'd actually lost my strong voice of opinion and being confident in a public setting to say what I thought. So I had to learn to actually be that person again.
Is that when you were the back person?
Yes.
Trying to come forward again?
To come forward again. And so I thought, how do I do that? How do I gain that confidence again? So I had to really push myself into situations that I would use my voice. Then I found I wasn't articulating it well enough. So I had to develop myself. I believe, though, that we all need people to assist us and support us to achieve that. So it is getting, whether it's professional help to do that, somebody who has an expertise. We can't always afford that. So it comes back down to your besties and saying, this is what I want to achieve, but I want you to really push me and critique me and, but they're supporting you at the same time and building up your confidence.
Yeah.
One thing, as a quick story, is that what we do, with our women, we invite them to speak. A lot of women, if you go, you're around a table and they say to you, we'd like each of you to introduce yourself, and somebody's sitting there breaking out in perspiration thinking, I don't know what to say. And that person beside me has just given this amazing account of themselves. Oh my gosh, I have got nothing to give. And we all have something to give. But by doing it in a trusted group, you're building your confidence up. And then by even speaking, as we invite people to do, get alongside them, of course, and support them in that, it builds confidence so much. But there's lots of different ways we can build confidence.
Do you think sometimes when we're in chapters that they're, how do we know when a chapter is over? Is it because it's uncomfortable, or is it a life point? Or are we just there because suddenly it's uncomfortable and now we think, oh, that one's over? Or is it the part of the chapter that is the challenge?
Yeah. It's a really good point.
I'm like,
I kind of feel it's part of the challenge of the chapter.
Yeah.
I do think that, because there are times that we feel really uncomfortable and we're thinking, oh, well, we want that chapter to end.
Disappear, go.
And to move on. But is it because we feel some risk? Is it because we feel some fear as to why we've got to understand why we're feeling uncomfortable? And once we can decide why that is, it actually might be a growth opportunity. So that chapter may well not have closed, and it may be gaining confidence opportunity. So I think we have to determine why we're feeling that way, because that chapter has probably not ended. If it is revolting and we just think, look, this is it, I really don't want to do this anymore. Yes, it's okay, because each chapter we can start again.
Do you think women sometimes shut the door too early and actually don't reach their full potential within a certain activity chapter? When it gets too hard,
it can happen, can't it?
Yeah.
I really believe that can happen a lot. And the reason it can, this is my own personal view,
go for it.
is that we are so good at taking a lot on. We are so good at being, we are the nurturers. We're go-getters, we're nurturers. We shoulder a lot of burden and we just keep sailing through. So I think unless we have the right upbeat, positive people around us, is that we can close the door. Because all of a sudden, I think we can actually we can just fall off. We can just think it's all too much. I can't keep going on and keep this energy up and close it. Where in fact, if we've had the right people around to support us, I think that door can stay wide open for much longer.
It's a key one, isn't it? Having the right people around you.
Yeah, I believe that.
Totally.
I really do.
So you talked about finding your why earlier on. So how can women uncover their why?
Yeah.
When they're feeling a bit lost, when you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, what am I doing? What is my why now?
I know. Why? It's why. I know, but yeah, why is a great one. I always think about my why with everything I do. Why am I doing it? Why am I persisting with that? Why do I love this, you know?
Can I ask, is your
Yes.
why a specific why to what you're doing then, or is it a greater universal why, your purpose in life?
Yeah, I think they're both connected. I really do. It's both. I think it is here and now, but it is the greater purpose in life because they're both connected to each other in some way. Mm-hmm. And I think I know that my why is forever evolving. It's never static. It never stays the same in regards to that. And I also know that what mattered greatly to me, my, say, 20s, 30s, 40s, it's different now, you know, to what my thinking, my why was then. So it is always evolving the whole time in regards to that. So even now, I know my why may not have fully emerged yet, my current why. You know, I'm doing everything I love and I won't stop doing that. But there'll always be the next why.
And isn't that exciting?
Very exciting. It really is.
No full stop.
No full stop, you know, but I think we all should, you know, I always consider my why. And if I'm unsure about something, I always go back to my why. Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? What's the impact I'm hoping to create from this? And then that delivers an explanation of my why at the time.
Fantastic. I'm just like, it's so good. So rebuilding confidence.
Yeah.
So we've discovered our why, we're working on it, and we're like, okay, this is my why now, but how do I get there? What if I'm not feeling confident? What if I'm now stepping out into the unknown?
Yeah.
How do we rebuild to be a confident person?
Yeah.
A truly confident person.
Yeah. Because it does take steps. I agree. And I don't think that we can, you know, we don't become confident overnight, generally. I think it's actually creating small steps towards it, because what we want to do through that time is we've got a goal we want to reach, and whatever that goal is of confidence, a more confident speaker, a more confident in the, you know, how I present myself to the world, whatever it may be. So creating small steps towards that means that we can celebrate the achievements along the way, and we can understand what those achievements are until we get to the position that we do feel confident in what we're doing. But, you know, what do those steps look like? You know, they may look differently. They may look quite different to you or to what it does for me. But it's setting, for me, I just set small goals. I write them down. I journal. I put them in the journal. This is my goal. These are the steps I'm going to take, and I'm going to not rush at it, but take my time so I don't put a lot of pressure on myself and think, oh, it's all too hard.
Because then we get into the uncomfortable zones, don't we? And then we discard it.
We shut the door.
We shut the door. So we self-sabotage a lot, don't we?
I think we can do. We really can do that. And, you know, that how as women, you know, why, even when you were talking about why. So, and if we're at a board table or we're at a lunch with somebody, or somebody is the alpha female, you know, whatever, it can be confronting, and it you know, we kind of can shrink a little bit with that. And I think we can self-sabotage by thinking, well, I'm not good enough, or why am I here? I actually don't deserve this seat at the table. And that's where that confidence building gets to a point. Actually, you know what? I'm just different to that person. I don't have the same personality, and that's a good thing. But what I have is valuable to me, and I hope it's valuable to you as well. But, you know, I'm going to be part of this.
How do you inspire women when things don't go to plan?
Yeah. I think when things don't go to plan, women, we all need inspiration. But I think getting the right people, I always go back to the group around you on how you inspire women, the right people around you. If you haven't got upbeat people around you who will raise you up onto their shoulders and be, you know, tell you how it is at the same time, but they're uplifting, I think it's tough. So inspiring people can come in different shapes and forms. I mean, it can be listening to a podcast can be incredibly inspiring, because there may be something that I'm thinking, I'm really interested in that and I'd like to learn more about that. Well, I'll listen to podcasts from really authentic people who know what they're doing, and that inspires me in many ways. So it's getting some tools around you, I think, that will lift you up and inspire you as well as people.
And have you seen any of the women that you've met over all these years and have been in part of your Inspire Me group who've come from like a little shallow shell, you know, and grown and blossomed and just in whatever they were doing? Have you?
Absolutely. I have seen that. And I think I've seen people walk in. So when a woman starts, you know, coming to the group, and they may feel a little bit apprehensive, you know, they don't know all these women, but they're greeted at the door and they're brought in. I've seen over a period of time somebody who's quite a shy person, they're the front person all of a sudden, you know. Yeah. I've seen women who, again, who would not be a natural speaker, who felt timid to actually say what they were thinking or to speak in a, you know, public forum, stand up and give a presentation to 50 women. And that inspires me. You know, it's courage, and they have taken those steps to actually have an impact on their lives, and that'll carry through and they'll keep building on that. That's inspiring.
Absolutely.
At BBG Built, we're straight-talking builders who know the value of comfort, warmth and smart design. Whether you're planning a renovation or something new, we make the process simple and stress-free. Let's help you plan well and build better. Visit www.bbgbuilt.co.nz to get started.
So we've talked a little bit about reinvention, but possibly more in the, or would we still call it reinvention, or would we call it confidence? If we become more confident and sure of ourselves, or maybe have a new identity, are we reinventing ourselves?
I think there's two things. I think there's one that we certainly can reinvent ourselves, which is doing something completely different. The same person, but we're reinventing ourselves in a way that we have never done before. But I think the other is realigning ourselves, you know, so that's how I look at it, because I know that I've had to realign from my past and my experiences to adapt into something new.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so even with Inspire, with Margie, for instance, you know, I had run businesses and things in the past, which a lot of it had become very administrative, HR, management, that type of thing. So when I decided I wanted to do something different, I didn't reinvent myself, because I knew at that stage of my life, in that chapter of my life, my values were, you know, what my values were and the sort of person I was. And I'd written down, you know, I knew what I wanted and what would ignite me, if you like. So I realigned all of those attributes, but into something purposeful. And that was bringing women together. So I just thought that was realigning myself to something new, something different. But I wasn't recreating or recreating a new me. Yeah.
Do you see any sort of generational and or cultural differences when it comes to women moving through chapters? We might break that down. We'll start with generational first.
Yeah.
Any sort of generational attributes that the different generations may have?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think there are. I know that when I looked back, for instance, in my generation, because I'm older, is that, you know, you got a job, you stayed at a job. It was about consistency, and you didn't, you know, make a lot of changes. I actually broke the mold on that one, because when I left school at 16, I was in year 12. Somebody said there's a job managing up the road, managing a real estate agency office. I can do that. See, that's might be my thing. I can do that. And went and got the job. And so I didn't go on to university and got that. But I continued on with that. So every year I promised to myself I would change my job every year until I found what I wanted to do. That's what I did. So I was probably come from a different generation.
We can't, yeah.
We do that now. And I take my hat off. So there was an expectation that we would not chop and change. And I think now when we look at our younger women is that they're having many experiences at travel, work, but particularly with work, they're trying different things. Even at university, they may start doing one particular degree, of course, and then they'll change perhaps and morph into something else. So I take my hat off to them because I think it widens up the whole scope of their life for them through that.
Do you think sometimes they morph too often? Our younger ones?
I can't answer that because I can't answer it because I'm probably not I'm not in their shoes.
Yeah.
The ones that I know who have done that have gone through stages or chapters, if you like, shorter chapters. Even they've taken experiences of each one of those with them till they've got into what they're passionate about or want to do in life.
And often that can be a parental expectation too.
Oh, I agree. It can absolutely be a parental expectation. Our 4 sons are all very different. In various sectors. And, we have one who's an engineer, one who's an artist. Both, though, artistic in their own ways, engineering and art. So, and it's brilliant. And sure, the one who's an artist, we may have had an expectation because he did well at school to go and do this, but we absolutely supported what he wanted to do because I really believe the more we can support our children in what they're passionate about and what they're good at, and what they feel great about without them trying to live through a mirror of what we want them to be and do. I think the outcome's good.
Now, you're in a very fortunate position where you have 2 lenses on in 2 different cultures because you obviously are involved or part of Ngā Tahu through marriage.
Yes.
And, of course, you've got your Pākehā culture as well.
Yeah.
Do you see differences in women's expectations? So have they changed? Have they grown?
I think it's interesting when we look at the cultural perspective. So where we live is actually opposite the marae for a start. So Nook is very involved in Māoridom, and so the journey has been wonderful. We have created a papakainga where we've built houses on our half an acre for all of our whānau, for our family as well, to come and go intergenerationally. For women, so what I'm saying from that is that because where I'm positioned, you're right, I do have a good lens and outlook on that. For Māori, for women, even going on to the marae, the women are a force. They're the first caller of calling people onto the marae. So they hold a very important position within Māoridom. And I don't think it's any different culturally. I think that they certainly have found barriers and challenges. But I think as actually Europeans, we've probably dealt with that more because culturally, I know in different cultures it's different. But in Māoridom, what I can see is the women are a tonga, and they are the first callers, and they're very respected and hold a very, high position. I think as Europeans in the workforce, for instance, it's taken us a long time to get a seat at the table. Yeah, where men are concerned, and things have changed dramatically. Thank goodness.
Absolutely. And are you seeing more Māori women breaking the glass ceiling?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's been happening for so long. I just think that now it's portrayed more. You sort of see it more. But it's always been happening for generations and just in different ways. So, it's a great thing.
They were more the back person.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You see, I don't think that. Everybody had a role to play, and if you've got the upuku, who's the chief in that, but literally they had such an important status always that I don't think that was the case. But I can't talk from their perspective again. Right. It's only, from what I see.
From what you've seen.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And with the whole the identity, and when we're reflecting on who we are, and what we want to become, do you think there is sometimes a struggle between honouring who we were and who we want to become, that fear of letting go?
Yeah, I think it's a human thing, that fear of letting go, really, because it gives us comfort. And to let go of something is actually stepping out of your comfort zone to a degree, I would say. So even with everything I do, I don't let go of everything. I'll let go of some things, but I'm still taking a lot of things with me no matter what I'm doing. So I'm not entirely letting go. But yeah, I think it's just stepping out of a comfort zone, and that takes courage to step out of a comfort zone.
So I hear of women who, and be transparent, my own personal experience of letting, my identity was around maybe always drinking, for example.
Yep.
And having to let that identity go.
Right.
And face something completely foreign.
Yeah.
And it's probably it is the best thing I've ever done in my life and for myself, because it's allowed me to grow and to go to a new chapter.
Yeah.
But very hard for me, and I'm sure other women out there who have big challenges and big barriers to let go, because their identity for decades has been wrapped around something that is who they were.
Absolutely. And it was something tangible for you, wasn't it? You know, and congratulations, by the way. That's really something, because that takes an incredible amount of courage to do that. I can't imagine the courage that it took to do that, actually. And also self-discipline to do that as well is huge. But obviously, as you're saying, it's been quite life-changing
Absolutely.
for you. But you've stepped out of that comfort zone of because it gave you perhaps a false courage, and you were at the front and all the rest of it. So sometimes you have to work through how you're going to make that change. I don't know what it was for you, whether you wrapped yourself around some really good people to support you through that, or whether it was just purely self-determination because you knew that the outcome was going to be so impactful and insightful for you.
Mine was the death of my brother suddenly.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's okay. But it was that sort of thing. It's like,
there you go.
What are you going to do with your life, Brenda?
Yeah.
So it is that thing, that whole bullet up here and say, right, you need to embrace something. You need to change something, because you're not going to live your best life.
Yeah, yeah. So you looked at your why.
I looked at my why.
You did.
And my why was lost for about 30 years.
Wow.
When I think back on where I started to where I am now, and how alcohol was the mask of it.
Yeah, yeah.
For decades.
Yeah. And alcohol can do that. I mean, that's a reality. I love a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But I am very disciplined and careful about not making it such a part of my life. Yeah. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But that's not always the case, know.
I would love to be able to sit down and have a glass of wine.
Have a glass of wine, yeah.
But I know that it would be, I don't want to go there again, because I've tried it. And then it will be suddenly 2. Yeah. And I'm in control.
Good on you.
If I still did it, I wouldn't be sitting here interviewing you now.
And that's right. And look at the outcome of that. I mean, you are this wonderful, confident, outgoing, wonderful woman. But it's true. And I'm not just saying that, but it's very true. And you made a change in your life that's been life-changing.
Totally. And, gosh, it wasn't meant to be about me.
Oh, but that was a great sharing. Thank you.
So this has been really inspiring, and I know the listeners will find it really, really inspiring about what you've had to share with us today, Christine. So just some practical takeaways for our audience. What do you think the first step should be when somebody feels stuck?
I think, first of all, is to acknowledge it. I mean, unless you acknowledge you're stuck, you just keep being stuck, right? So acknowledge it, and then you've got to work out. And I just write things down. It makes it very clear to me. Otherwise, I just get confused with the whole thing. I write down why I feel like I'm stuck. So once you've written it down, you can have a good look at that. Then you can start to create some small steps that will make you unstuck, because to not be stuck means you've got to make change. What do those changes look like? What's your why? How are you going to get there? Who do you need to help you to get there if you need that extra help?
Celebrating the small wins along the way.
Celebrate the small wins. And then celebrating the small wins is important, because then you're going to celebrate the major win, because the small wins will take you to the big win.
And you don't even know you're there, and then you're there.
And then you're there.
And then you're there.
Yeah.
Look, this has been such a powerful and inspiring conversation, Christine, and I think so many women will be listening and seeing themselves in this, just like I did.
Thank you.
And for those thinking, I'd love support, connection, or to be part of something like this, where can they find you and Inspire Me Woman?
Oh, we would love to see women, as we always do, to come along in Canterbury and Christchurch. So we have www.inspiringmenow.com, and we also have a Facebook page as well. So you'll see Margie and I on there having lots of fun and giving tips as well at the same time.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. And for our listeners, this stage of life isn't the closing chapter. It can be the beginning of something incredibly powerful. Until next time, take care and keep nourishing yourself from the inside out. You've been listening to Simply Nourish, empowering women through menopause and beyond. With me, Brenda Bickerstaff. I'm a certified, registered and experienced nutritionist and menopause coach. I'm passionate about supporting women to thrive during menopause with personally tailored science-backed nutrition and lifestyle strategies. You can find more information at simplynourish.co.nz. We will have a new episode for you on the second Sunday of every month at 5 p.m. on Plains Media. So mark your calendar and tune into 96.9 FM and plains.org.nz or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast or YouTube. You can also support Simply Nourish, empowering women through menopause and beyond by leaving a review. Stay up to date with the show on Instagram at Simply Nourish NZ and Facebook at Simply Nourish, where I also share the latest health information and strategies to support your menopause journey. Brought to you by BBG Built, your builders of choice, and Simply Nourish. Take care, trust yourself, and remember, small steps for big changes.